Hello, and welcome to my presentation on Docker 101, a metacognitive approach to MOOCs, massive open online courses. So, get started. So for my project, I built a website called Docker 101, which basically covers four main topics. Containerization concepts, which actually is just containerization as a whole, not specific to Docker. And then I dive into 5 subjects of Docker, which is containers, images, volumes, networks, and Docker services. The course layout, which is also somewhat represented right here in this diagram, which I'll get to when I click through the website and demo that. But the course layout is essentially week 1 is always going to be containerization concepts, and then week 2, the student has an option to take either of these paths. So for week 2, they can either choose to learn about Docker containers or Docker images, whichever they have more interest in, and then the next week they learn about the other. The reason I did this was basically to try to spark the interest of the student early on, and so when students are in courses where some of the content isn't as interesting to them as some of the content later in the course, they could potentially be less motivated, and then by the time they do get to that subject that they were more interested in, then they have less momentum. So the idea here is to allow the student, give them the autonomy to choose what they want to learn when, within reason, and then and then they'll eventually have to learn all the subjects regardless. So for week 3 and then week 4, they can choose these in any order. So then they can choose to learn about networks and then learn about volumes and then Docker services. But it's all about giving the student the feeling like they're in charge and give them that autonomy of learning what they want to learn within the confines of these 6 subjects. Each week, except for the first week, looks a lot like this, and so there'll be an overview of the entire topic for that week, and then there'll be questionnaires for prior to lecture about planning what they want to learn in the lecture, and then they'll watch all the lecture videos, and then a post-evaluation questionnaire on what they think they got out of the lecture, and then week 1 actually ends there. But every other week has an assignment associated with it. So then next they'll do a questionnaire planning about how they want to approach the assignment and what they want to gain from it, and then completing the assignment, and then an evaluation of how it went, and then peer feedback instructions, which is the same every course, so they'll probably just read through this the first time and then go straight to peer feedback of the assignment, and then on to the next week. So for the questionnaires, which are talked about here and here, pre and post for the lecture, pre and post for the assignment, there are also questionnaires that occur. So prior to the entire course, they'll do a planning questionnaire right here, and then after week 2, they'll recap that same questionnaire combined with a monitoring evaluation, and then after week 4, they'll answer another questionnaire, and then at the end they'll answer another questionnaire. I'll actually elaborate on those a bit more in these slides. So yeah, these are all the questionnaires that they go through. There's 8 total. And for the course questionnaires, they're divided into 3. For all of them, they're divided into 3, but this middle column is actually missing in the lecture and assignments, which I'll get to. So for this left column is the planning phase. This middle column is the monitoring phase, and this right column is evaluating. So for the course, the planning questions are around basically what they want to get out of it, why is it important to learn this material of the course, how does success in this course relate to my career goals, which had a lot of context for the research group that I gave this to, my coworkers. How am I going to actively monitor my learning in this course? What do I most want to learn in this course? What do I want to be able to do by the end of the course? And this one is very similar to something we ask in the assignment description as well. So all these are around asking the student what they want out of it, how do they measure their success, how do they get the most out of this course, basically. And we ask this. I'll get to that actually in a second. And so then the monitoring, we ask them in what ways teaching in this course supporting. In what ways is the teaching in this course supportive of my learning? How could I maximize this? And these are asked. The middle column is asked. Actually, I'll just jump one ahead. So the planning questions are asked at the beginning of the course, and then planning questions are asked again at 1/3 of the course after week 2, along with the middle column. These monitoring questions. And then after week 4, 2/3 through the course, we ask the monitoring questions again. So we're done with the planning questions at this point. We ask the monitoring questions again, and we ask evaluating questions. It's a bit of a preview to what they're going to see at the end of the course, and then afterward we just ask them the evaluating questions. So getting back to this, getting back to the monitoring questions, in what ways is the teaching in this course not supportive of my learning? How could I compensate for or change this? And how interested am I in this course? How confident am I in my learning? What could I do to increase my interest and confidence? And so we're constantly asking them to reiterate and revise how their learning is actually going during the course. And then the evaluating questions, what have I learned about how I learn in this course that I could use in my future technology courses, in my career? And so basically asking them what tools did they use in this course that they could also apply. Again, getting back to my coworkers, what tools did they use in learning this that they could also apply to projects that they're working on at Avalara? In what ways is the teaching in this course, also for context, Avalara is the company that I work for, so my coworkers there's some relevance there for that specific question. In what ways is the teaching in this course supportive of my learning? How could I maximize this? In what ways is the teaching in this course not supportive of my learning? How could I compensate for or change this? Sounds a little bit like that's just a recap version of this question, kind of. How interested am I in this course? How confident am I in my learning? What could I do to increase my interest and confidence? So those are the course questionnaires. Moving on to the lecture questionnaires. These are provided before and after the lecture. Again, I'll show this on the website. What are the goals? It's getting a little redundant to read through all these, so I'll just display them here, and then you can pause the video and read them if you like. Typo here, this should say assignment questionnaires. These questionnaires are provided before an assignment and after the assignment, so planning and evaluating, same as the lectures. And then for good feedback, we highlight these 7 principles that make feedback useful. And so good feedback helps clarify what good performance is. Good feedback facilitates the development of self-assessment and learning. Good feedback delivers high-quality information to students about their learning. And so getting back to just recapping on this first bullet point helps clarify what good performance is. I think it's really important to emphasize this in the assignment description as well. And so I'll refer back to this when we're clicking through the website and how I tried to put focus on that specific bullet point. Good feedback encourages teacher and peer dialogue around learning, which I incorporated the Q&A section of the website that actually I wasn't able to finish. Moving on, good feedback encourages positive motivational beliefs and self-esteem. Good feedback provides opportunities to close the gap between current and desired performance. And then good feedback provides information to teachers that can be used to help shape the teaching. So that's the end of my slideshow. I would like to demonstrate the website. And before I do that, so this is the website. And also a really cool part of this that I got to work on and learn a bit about was continuous integration and delivery. And so I wrote some tests for this and automated the deployment process. And so now whenever I push a commit to the GitHub repository, this Travis CI build automatically kicks off a deploy, which was really cool, and it made development super easy. And anytime I wanted to push changes, all I had to do was, and I'm going to demonstrate this now, mid presentation. So here we go. Course overview. So if we get back to the website, you'll see, and this is hosted on GitHub. GitHub Pages is a free service. Okay, so homepage, this says course overview. We're going to change this to say presentation. Or let's just change it to say welcome to Docker 101. Save that. Check the status. Add. Stage the changes and push that, and it has to be pushed to the master branch for a deploy to happen. Okay, so now our commit is pushed. And if we go back to here, we see a build that is happening right now. That was triggered just a second ago. If we refresh and click on this, we will see jobs received, queued, and now it's booting the virtual machine to deploy. So we'll let that build, and while I click through the rest of the website. And so this is the website once again. It uses, instead of any data persistence, which would have costed money to use S3 to persist some of the data of how far along a student is in their course. Rather, I just store it all in local storage. Oh, whoops. In local storage in the browser. So, yeah, moving forward, I'll just keep this to the side and click over and show how the Redux stays. So this is built using React and Redux, which is a front-end platform for single-page apps. And so I'll just click through the whole flow of this. Now, all of these hexagons up here, most of them are not clickable. These, however, are. And so each course, and this again goes through that autonomous layout of the course. And so containerization concepts is one lecture, containers, or if you want to do images, second week, then images, then containers, then networks, Docker services, and Docker volumes. And all the while, the Redux state is being stored here. So this is basically tracks all the progress you've had. So I'm just going to clear that. Go back to the overview. Here we go. So this is just the traditional flow through the entire course, what we would expect a student to experience when doing this entire thing. So they read over the course overview and then start on that first pre-course questionnaire. So these are stored in this state here. And so if we go to this and then go back, we'll still see them there. If we refresh, they're still there. So also, just to interrupt, the build passed, and so we should see this deployed now. Welcome to Docker 101. Boom. So a deploy is literally that easy, and it made development so easy. So moving on, pre-questionnaire, and then onto the first topic, onto the lecture preview, and then here are the lecture videos. These are videos that I recorded myself. For example, here's one.
Let's dive into some security around that. First,
But I found it more useful to just gather other helpful videos where possible. So I really only made videos when I found gaps in certain topics that I wanted to talk about. But if I found existing lectures on YouTube, then I just use those. So these are notes that students are expected to take while they're listening to a lecture and how they're interpreting it. So they can say, that's really distracting. Say, I don't understand concept A, and then they can come back to that later on. and then another questionnaire to evaluate the lecture, and then moving on to images. And I'll just click through this really quickly because it is more or less the same. Except I'll stop here for assignments, and so every assignment has takeaways. And so for this assignment, specifically after doing an assignment on Docker images, we want you to have a working knowledge of Docker images. You will walk away from this assignment knowing how to construct a Docker image from scratch, how to publish this on the free to use Docker Hub registry, which is right here, Docker Hub, or hub.docker.com, and how to run a container from this image. So it's important for a student to be able to click here, see the takeaway, and if this sounds like something they want to be able to do, then it just contextualizes the assignment very easily for them and hopefully instills a little more motivation as to why they would want to complete this assignment. And then you attach your file, and this submit actually doesn't really do anything because that was a part of the assignment that I omitted, which was data storage. So moving on, I'll click through this whole thing. After week 2, we should see this first third course evaluation, and in the feedback area, before feedback, we provide all this context for what good feedback looks like, and then I actually wasn't able to complete this part of the assignment, so I just embedded an iframe with the Georgia Tech feedback platform. And then the first third course questionnaire has a recap of all the planning questions along with monitoring questions. Moving on. And then you have the choice of any 3 of these next. So say you want to learn about Docker networks next, and you can click back using this link. Then you learn about Docker networks, and then you go into this. Again, each week, more or less the same situation. And then after week 4, you'll have the third course evaluation. So 2/3 of the way through, you'll be asked the same monitoring questions from the first third, along with some evaluating questions that you'll also see at the post-course evaluation. And so then the list of options become one less because you've already done the networks lecture. We'll go on to Docker services, and then onto volumes, which will be the last week. And then this post-course evaluation, which asks you just the evaluating questions. And then next steps, which I didn't put a lot of context here because it didn't seem that useful. And then also one extra bonus page is the Q&A page, which I was actually not able to build out either. And that is the entire website. Thank you so much for watching my presentation.